Hi everyone, Jess here from D-Zine. I'm going to show you how to make a jingle bell from a Jingle Bell blank. First we're going to anneal it, and it's better to anneal in a dark place so you can see when your blank turns to a light cherry color. It's hard to see. And I'm going to use this little baby mobile stamp, and I'm going to stamp each corner of the blank. I'm doing the tilt and tap method here to make sure that I get a good impression on each of the tines of the bell. And that means rocking your stamp back and forth, forward, backward, side to side as you're tapping on it with your hammer so that you can get a good impression. This is 16 gauge copper. It comes with double-sided protection, but for the bell you don't really need that because you're going to need to anneal the bell, so you need to take the protection off before you anneal it. Now we need to mark 2 dots in the middle of your blank. So I'm just going to use this steel block right here to make a mark down the center, and then turn it and make another mark down the center. Oh man, that one's off a little bit. Let me readjust that. Much better. Now we're going to use a center punch, and we're going to punch on both sides of those lines so that we have 2 dots in the middle to drill out. The center punch just marks our spot so that our drill can fit into those little divots and not scratch up our blank. Now would be a good time to drill those, but I forgot. And it's good because I'll show you later on what we do when we forget to drill the hole now. This teddy bear blank is going to go in the middle of my bell. I think bells are great for baby announcements, ornaments, wedding favors, just because. So now we're going to re-anneal our blank because stamping on it has work hardened it, and we're going to need it to be nice and soft when we get it into our dapping block, which is next. So I've gotten it there. You can see the nice cherry color, and here's my dapping block. We're going to turn the blank over, and you want to line the tine up with the corner of one of the holes and place your dapper right there. Give it a tap, and you'll see, I'm just going to get in there again to get a better tap. You'll see how it bends up. See how it's bent? Now we're going to repeat this process with all 4 of the tines. Sometimes you have to find a shallower one and it will work easier for you. There's no rule, or if there is, I don't know it. So we're going to set this in there right on our tine, give it a tap so that it bends. Now we have 2. I'm just going to tap this one again in the shallower one to see if it gets it better. Yeah, that's a little better. Now we're on our 3rd tine. I'm going to center it right at where the bend of the tine is because the side is going to push it up for me. If you use a wood dapping block, you'll wind up with less marks on the sides of your tines, but I actually like the hammered look that using the metal block gives each of the sides of the bell, which you'll see better in a second. So now all 4 of my sides are bent, my tines, and now I'm going to put it in the big one in the middle, and I'm going to get a bigger dapper, one that matches the size kind of the inside of my square right there, and we're going to tap it in. Now once you've got it dapped down and it's surrounding your dapper, you're going to take the sides of your tines and get that dapper so that it really gets this area right over here where your tine meets the square. So you want to really get that area nice and rounded, otherwise your bell is going to be a bit more flat and kind of squished if you don't round out those necks of the tines where they meet the square. So I'm just going to each one of them, and you can see I'm kind of setting the bell off to the side so that my dapper is really getting the neck instead of the middle. Okay, and there we go. See this piece right here? That's what we're trying to get rounded. And it is all nice and round and even. So now I'm going to go to a smaller. See how it's smaller? That's a bigger one. I think it fits better there. So we're going to go here first. As long as there's room for you to punch in, you don't want to be touching the bottom of your dapping block, or you're not going to be able to dome anymore. So you need to have a space in between so that you can keep doming. Again, each time I go to a different size, I make sure that I get those corners. You see the slightly hammered look that appears on the edge of the tines? I like that. Now I just take my pliers to pop it off. Give it a nice look over, make sure everything looks rounded. It looks pretty good to me. And oops, I just realized we forgot to drill our holes. But that's okay. I'm going to keep dapping it a little more, and I'll show you how to fix that. So I'm using a smaller dapper now, going into each of those corners of the tine to round it off and make sure it's nice and round. It's just repetition, going from bigger hole to smaller hole, and then bigger dapper to smaller dapper. Just giving you an updated look so that you can see how it's coming along. Okay, I'm going to push it in a little bit more now. It's going to get nice and tight around my dapper. I'm going to go to a smaller hole and get it even smaller. Nice and tight around this dapper now. Pull it off with your pliers. And I distorted that tine getting it off a little bit, but it's not a big deal. I'm going to fix it. Right now, in fact. All I have to do is take the dapper and put it back on that side and give it a little tap. It's very work hardened by this point. It's solid. I mean, look, just to get that little bit off, I really have to yank. But look, it's definitely a bell. We've got our whole bell shape, and now we're going to start looking at what we can put in there for our clacker, and then we have to fix our 2 holes right there. We got to drill those suckers out. I have waxed up my bit. I'm using a Fordham, and I'm going to use the dapping block to hold my bell because it's a weird shape. So if you were trying to do this like on your bench block, you'd have problems. So I just hold it in place, punch through the 2 holes. Again, if you punch through your 2 holes in the beginning, no matter what you used, if you used a power punch or if you used a drill bit, if you used a drill press, it's very easy to do when it's flat with multiple things. Now I'm going to take this bent piece of wire and I'm going to thread it through the 2 holes. And I'm going to use a pair of pliers to pull it all the way through. And now that it's all the way through, I'm just going to kind of twist these wires to keep them together so they don't fall out. And then I'm just going to push them out of the way because we're going to continue dapping. And you don't have to worry about the wires getting squished when you dap if you wrap them around your bell, because most of our heavy lifting has already been done by now, our heavy hitting. So we're not really going to ruin those wires. There's my little bit of copper that it's a piece of thick copper wire that I just had a little chunk laying around, and I cut it in half. And now I'm going to tap with my rawhide mallet my tines down just a littlest bit to keep that clacker in there. And you can see my clacker just fell out. So I'm just going to keep shaping it. I'm not going to put the clacker back in just yet because it's going to keep falling out. I've got to get these tines to close a little bit more, but you can see that our bell is really looking like a bell. The part you're doing now is just going to be manipulating those tines and getting them to sit where you want them to sit. You have to first make them small enough to get your clacker in. Then you pop your clacker in there, and you're going to tap down with the mallet to get it to stick in there. And I mean, you absolutely can anneal at this point if you need to. if your tines aren't going anywhere because they're so work hardened, you can give it an anneal, because you're going to keep shaping it and moving those tines a little bit until you get them exactly where you want them so that your shape is perfect. The end of my hammer's falling off, sorry. So here's what it looks like right now, and you can see one of my tines is a little bit off, and I am unable to move it until I anneal it. So I went and annealed it, and then you can see it's soft again, and it's enough that I can maneuver it with my fingers and the pliers to get my tines where I want them to go. And honestly, I probably was like a little bit more anal than I needed to be about this. I just had that one tine that was out of place, and I wanted to really get it in there tight. And there we go. That's our bell shape. So here it is in all the different sides, and you can see that I'm going to take this top wire now, and I'm going to bend it and twist it until it's in a circle, like this. Then I'm going to snip together with my scissors when they're together and lined up in an even spot. And now I'm going to use this like a jump ring. I'm going to match my ends up until they are flush, and so that there's no light between them. Get them nice and lined up right there. There we go. Now I'm going to take this and solder it. I've soldered it, and look at the steam come out of the bell. And there's our bell. Now I'm going to pickle it. I use this citric acid powder and hot water. I put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and here's my bell when it comes out of the pickle. Okay, here we are with our final result. So our bell was in the tumbler for about an hour and a half. I took it out, and I took a black Sharpie, and I colored in all of the little mobiles. And then on the top is my teddy bear. And she's a Jingle Bell. From start to finish, not including tumbling time, it took me 15 minutes. And that was with a lot of stopping to chat with you guys and show you guys. So I probably would say I probably have them down to less than 10, start to finish. This is my fourth one now. I've done 2 big ones and 2 little ones, and I have the medium bell shape coming soon. So there you go. There's your Jingle Bell. Also, if you search YouTube for how to make a Jingle Bell, there are other people who use the same blanks and show you, and there are people who show you hand-cut ones how to do them. So if you don't just want to watch mine and you want to watch a few more, really it's all about the dapping. Dapping the corners, then dapping this area right here, and then dapping the middle until you get a shape close to a Jingle Bell, and you drop in your clacker and Bell City.